Alright, Netflix's Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, is finally out for your streaming pleasure. And the movie is just okay. Usually I kind of fall on one end of the spectrum when it comes to Zack Snyder films. I either love them or I hate them, but this one falls somewhere in the middle. I think it was just okay. Now, the direction in the movie is flawless. You know, Zack Snyder has always got an eye for great cinematography. He's got great shots that really ensnare the audience's visual senses. That's just something that he's always been good with, and it's a consistent staple in all of his films. The action in this movie, personally, it didn't really engage me the same way a lot of the action in some of his other movies did, where there's like an iconic fight scene or something like that I remember. There isn't anything that really hits that same level for Rebel Moon. But that being said, the action is still handled very well. I like the way it was shot, and you could tell that there was a lot of, practical acting when it came to that, rather than like stunt doubles and stuff like that. So I think that was pretty cool. I also saw some behind the scenes stuff of people, actually working out and like getting, in shape and shredded to be a part of this movie. And I think that was pretty cool. Like, I think there was like one interview with like Charlie Hunnam where he was like, I wasn't going to work out for this movie. When I saw everyone was like putting in the effort, he was like, I joined in. I think that's pretty interesting. The CGI and special effects with this movie, especially with it being on a streaming service, I think it looked really good. A lot of it was actually movie quality, I would say. Well, like theater quality when I refer to the movies. I didn't really see anything that was uncanny that really pulled me out of it in regards to the CGI, except for like maybe one shot where there's like these tentacles that wrap around the bad guy because like he's gonna fornicate with it, I think, for lack of a more sensitive term, I guess. But aside from that, there isn't really anything too crazy in the movie that made me go like, ooh, yeah, that was kind of tough. But I'm not the best person when it comes to spotting this stuff. Other people might have noticed it, and I haven't. That's just how it goes sometimes. But the biggest thing that really caught me off guard here was the story. This movie is very much an extremely slow burn story, and I really felt what he means by it's a two-part movie. Because when he announced that Rebel Moon was going to be a two-part movie, I was just kind of like, okay, I figured this movie would be like self-contained and the story would end here. But the beginning of this movie very much feels like the setup for what the end of the second movie is going to be. The initial premise of this movie is that we have a soldier named Cora who has escaped from the evil empire in this movie called the Mother World. She's hiding out in this farm world. The empire comes over. They threaten these farmers, and she has 9 weeks to assemble a team of people to protect the farm to make sure that they don't get destroyed. I assumed that the end of the first movie was going to be about that, but it feels like protecting the farm is going to be the focus of both the first and second part. So the climactic big battle to save this place is going to be the second part, while this first part was more about assembling the team of heroes that are going to defend it. Which, I don't know, it kind of taxed me on the movie just because my perception of what it was going to be was thrown off by the fact that this one movie is basically one extremely long get the team together kind of film. And it didn't help that the second act of this movie, where the team is actually brought together, is probably the worst part of the movie. The first and third act, I can understand and justify what's going on with the story and how slow it is, because the first act, you got to build up the location that everybody's supposed to protect. It's got to establish a connection with the audience, so that's why they spend a lot of time there. And then the third act is the final battle. But the second act, they're kind of just bouncing around from planet to planet, picking up people. Some events I thought were going to be more impactful and take longer, like when they go to get the character of General Titus. I thought that was going to be like a whole ordeal from the way they described like the location he was at and like what happened to the last people that went to try and talk to him and stuff like that. But they ended up just going there and be like, hey, yo, join our rebellion. He's like, all right, bet. And it's like, oh, that was it? Okay. Well, okay, I guess we're just moving on now. So the whole movie kind of felt like that to me, and I honestly think it would have been better if it was an anime. I'm not kidding. I think this movie would have worked significantly better if it was an anime TV series, because I think the animation style of something like Cyberpunk or Cowboy Bebop would have really suited this universe, and then being an episodic series would have just fitted significantly better. Because the beginning of the movie that feels very long and drawn out, if you put that as like the first 2 episodes of an anime setting up the call to adventure, I think it would have been easily digestible. But the fact that like this whole opening is a part of a 2-hour and 15-minute movie feels like it's dragging on. You're waiting to see the call to adventure happen. You want to see our main character go on a journey, but they take their time establishing everything, and it really hurts the viewing experience. By the time I got like an hour and like, I don't know, about like an hour and 7 minutes into the movie, I looked at the timestamp and I was like, Jesus, I still have another hour and 8 minutes left. Whew. Okay, we're gonna keep pushing. We're gonna keep going. That's honestly how I felt. And one more negative I will say before I head out is these characters are not that impressive when it comes to staying power. None of them really grabbed me as iconic sci-fi characters that I'm going to remember for the rest of my days. They were all kind of like the same kind of character. They all felt very, stoic, cool action person that, doesn't really say much. And that kind of got bland after a while, especially since there's like 6-7 characters in this movie. There was literally a part in the third act where the bad guy starts monologuing to each of the characters, basically giving them all like a little character bio. And as I was watching him give this monologue, I was sitting there just like, oh shit, I don't know anything about any of these characters, because like I didn't know half the stuff this guy was saying here. Who am I kidding? Not even half. I didn't know any of the stuff this guy was saying. He's like, yes, you prince of this place, and you were this kind of warrior that's assassinated, blah blah blah. And I was just like, did I miss something? Because like, where did all of this information come from? Like, it just spawned out of nowhere. So, and I think that's honestly just because of like the twist in the movie about like all of the characters that they want to keep hidden. But I think that really negative affects everything that happens, because like now I didn't know these characters and all this information is being dumped at me, and I'm just sitting here stunned because I'm like, I feel like I missed an entirely separate movie that explained all of this stuff, which might actually be the case given the fact that Zack Snyder does have a director's cut planned for Rebel Moon Part 1 to release at some point in the future. I don't know the release date yet because he hasn't said it, but there is a director's cut that's planned to release at some point in the future, and I think that would probably fill in a lot of the blanks of stuff that I'm like, oh, I don't really know where any of this fits in, and that's a huge problem in my opinion. And I guess one last thing, it's a fun fact if you happen to not know. Rebel Moon was originally supposed to be a pitch for a Star Wars movie to Lucasfilms, and it got rejected. So Snyder took it, turned it into his own universe, and now we have Rebel Moon. I think that's pretty cool. I respect the ideology of like, oh, you guys didn't want my story? Fine, I'll do it myself, and I'll make my own bank off of it. Bet. So I respect that ideology, but you can very clearly tell this is supposed to be a Star Wars property. Like the mother world, the antagonists of the film are very clearly the Empire. They're space Nazis that have planet-destroying ships. It's like, oh, okay, so these are stormtroopers and Star Destroyers. Then, you meet the character of Nemesis later on in the movie. She's a stoic, quiet, masterful sword wielder that uses blades that ignite with lasers. Clearly some sort of, Jedi or Sith that ends up working with the heroes. Stuff like that. So it's very blatantly obvious the references and stuff they took, and like even the main character being the daughter of the bad guy, very reminiscent of how like Luke and Rey were the children of Darth Vader and Palpatine, stuff like that. It's very obvious the inspiration that Snyder took from Star Wars, and I feel like he took a lot of inspiration from Dune as well, just with the visuals, like the gritty kind of visual storytelling that he has with this movie feels very reminiscent of Dune. So I feel like he kind of blended both Star Wars and Dune together into his own movie. But yeah, so that's really Rebel Moon. It's fine. I think people would enjoy a fun watch of it. Like I said, you might feel bored in the second act of the movie as they're like getting the band together, just because of like the little character depth that they really get and explain there. But yeah, I'll be checking out the director's cut when it comes out eventually in the future, and I'll be checking out part 2 when it releases on like April 19th, I think. It's like 14th, 19th, something like that. So, yeah, with all that being said, let me know what you think of Rebel Moon down in the comments below. My X or Twitter, whichever you prefer, is in the comments, description. If you want to follow me, I can use the followers and, get to know me better. Yell at me if you like the movie, hated it, whatever. And with that being said, I'm the innocent villain, your innocent to proven villainous, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.